todavía unos 2
Good
minutos.
morning, everyone. We're going to wait a couple of minutes before we start the session so more people can join. Thank you.
Bueno, vamos a comenzar. Nuevamente, bienvenidas y bienvenidos a la tercera sesión de la Comunidad de Práctica, Perspectiva de Igualdad de Género en la Educación Pública. Estamos muy contentos con la participación, con la asistencia. Esta ya es nuestra tercera sesión. Les recuerdo que el objetivo de esta Comunidad de Práctica es facilitar espacios de encuentro para compartir experiencias y movilizar conocimientos en torno a la perspectiva de igualdad de género en la educación. La sesión de hoy se
So
titula
today's session, it is called Policies with a Perspective of Gender Equality in Latin America and the Caribbean, Learnings from the Experience. To do so, to go deeper into this topic, we will have three presenters representing El Salvador, Grenada, and Honduras, and they will share experiences of educational policies, and then later we'll have a debate. Please introduce yourself in the chat, Zoom chat, write your name, the institution and the country. Once again, we want to thank you for being here, for the commitment with the community, and I leave the floor to Fernanda. Just 1 second, please. I am here sharing my screen right now. Just 1 second. So there we are. So first of all, some technical instructions for the proper working, right, of this session. So the structure of this session, as Maciel just said, we're going to work in a thematic framework about the topic of this session, educational policy with a gender perspective. Later, we're going to have some presentations of our three speakers from the region. And finally, we're going to have a space for discussion. So we will start by understanding why it is important that in this session to talk about this teaching training with gender equality, gender perspective. We started in this community talking about the general topic, which was policies with gender equality. And from the second session, from the conversations that we had, we wanted to go deeper in understanding the importance of the roles of teachers, both men and women, as agents within the educational institutions in order to socialize and to make these policies feasible. So here we have that for getting an educational process which is equalitarian, in terms of gender, we need to have a teaching which is based on this, and therefore we need to develop some policies, educational policies, which are specific for teacher training with gender's perspective. What's a policy? A policy, it is a course of action or inaction chosen by public authorities to address a given problem or interrelated set of problems. So a policy, it is made up of at least three elements. First of all, a definition of the problem. A problem could be, for instance, not having well-trained teachers for working with gender perspective in the classroom. Later, we need some goals, which is understanding where we want to get to once we go over this problem. And finally, we need instruments. So how are we going to develop this topic? How are we going to work our problem or problems? What elements do we have? What mechanisms do we have? And all of this, these three components define or help to build an educational policy. So in a study done in Latin America, quite interesting, in 2021, analyzed educational policies for the last 10 years in the region, they found some key elements in order to for the continuation or regression or developing some gender equality and equality policies in education. A topic which was very important was that political tensions and government changes influence and they affect the continuity or development of these educationals. So gender, it is sensitive to policies, public policies. So that's why it is so important, the second point, that the generation of public policies should be anchored in a legal framework accompanying their implementation with a special focus in primary education. It is relevant then that for in order to give this continuity to these policies, they should have a legal framework supporting the educational system. Common aspects about this aspect of gender policy in education in the region, first of all, they aim to enhance gender mainstreaming and institutionalization and create strategies and actions to reduce the inequality gaps between men and women. Another common point of these policies is that they are intersectoral policies. What means that there's more than one ministry involved in these policies. They are not focal policies, they go through many different political sectors. And thirdly, they are based international agreements and commitments signed with world organizations. So there is a bigger framework than the country itself for these policies. So over here, there's a framework for understanding how national policies and national initiatives have a bigger anchorage and some uh, reference frameworks bigger than the country. So first, we have the international instruments, such as the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Later, at a second level, we have regional instruments. For instance, in Latin America, we have the Inter-American Convention for Preventing, Sanctioning, and Eradicating Violence Against Women. That is an agreement that many of the countries and the territory has signed. Later, we have the national instruments, for instance, political constitutions of each of the countries. And finally, we have the institutional policies, such as a national strategy for gender in education. Finally, something important here, it is that the fields, the most common areas of conflict in the policies, educational policies, with a gender perspective, first of all, are the theoretical and value-based conception of gender underpinning these goals. And secondly, all of the elements related to physical autonomy, which are related to sexual and reproductive rights and the construction of sexual identities and diversity, which are the most critical ones. Those are the ones who are usually more sensitive in order to have a change in the conception of these gender notions. So this is the general framework. To continue this conversation, we have three presenters, speakers, and we will give the floor, first of all, to Yeny Rivas. She's manager of gender in the Ministry of Education in El Salvador. Jenny, just one second. Jenny has been trained in educational policies and in gender, and she's going to present the teacher training as a tool for incorporating equal educational opportunities for women and men. Jenny, the floor is all yours. Thank you very much, Fernanda. Here I am. I will share my screen. Thank you. Just one second.
¿Puedes compartir?
Ahorita se supone que estoy ahorita. ¿La ven? Sí, la ven, ¿verdad?
Sí, ahí la vemos.
There we can see your presentation.
Aquí, ay, perdón.
So give me just 1 minute. So thank you very much for the opportunity of sharing this information with you. This is an relevant space.
Tenemos como miembros del equipo
As a member of Geeks Like, this is important to achieve the challenges, the advancements that we have had. As Fernanda well said, right now I will share the experience that we have in teachers training as a tool for including equality and gender equality and opportunities for men and women, the experience of El Salvador. I love that Fernanda introduced these policies because we started from there. We start from a background framed, first of all, in the international regulations which the country has adopted or signed, and we also have a topic, a legal framework, which is national, which allows us to propose what this teacher training is, especially for equality of opportunities. About this, El Salvador has two laws, the one for equality and eradication against discrimination against women, and the special law for violence-free life for women. So they have been, these two laws have some mandates for all of the states of the country. And there's some specific elements for the teacher training and the work related to human rights for women in the country. Currently, we have this in law of protection for women and adolescents. From the 31st of December, it entered into force. It is the same law, which is called law of protection. So the ministry needs to work on that, on all of these contents. It must give some spaces, safe spaces free of violence against women, adolescents, and girls, and prevention of violence. Those are the national laws. As a ministry of education, we also have a general law of education. In this general law of education, with with these special laws, when enter into force, there was a reform. And there's an article which is specific that says that the Ministry of Education must boost equality, gender policy contributing to equality of conditions between men and women in the educational system. So we have created this policy of equality in education. I'd like to talk about the construction of this policy because this is a framework which will lead this formative process. This policy is born from a diagnosis, institutional diagnosis of gaps, gender gaps within the educational system. We wanted to have a diagnosis in order to know, and we worked the policy through some critical affairs and problems. As we know, when talking about gender, there are many different problems. And the school, it is an important place where we can learn to debuild, educate, prevent, identify, and accompany educational processes. Within the diagnosis of gender gaps within the educational system, before the construction of the policy, we found a critical element, which was that the educational system had a sexist education. And oftentimes, when talking about they want reproducing it not because they wanted to, but because of the hidden curriculum, the social constructions and religious ones that teachers had. I mean, teachers were promoting this inequality, especially against women, which are the ones who are having jeopardized. So in this implementation plan for the policy, that has three important areas. I will not go further into that because we need to continue. But the first area, priority area, which is going to be important for us in order to go into our topic, it is the institutional cross-sectionalization. It's important that when the educational ministry, all of instances of the ministry may work cross-sectionally in order to obtain proper results. The second area, priority, it is not non-sexist education. So there, this teacher training, it is also anchored. And the third area, it is adolescent pregnancy and eradication of violence against adolescents. So the commitment that we have for this opportunity, equality, and education, it is in terms of training. It is important because it is a need. We cannot talk about educational equality when we are not working in an egalitarian way within the system, educational system. We also start from the premises that the Ministry of Education it is aware that the educational system cannot maintain a neutral attitude before inequalities between men and women, and their responsibility. They're responsible for being a driver for this change in the school and society. Integrating this perspective of inequality, equality, and opportunities means to make visible all of the social inequalities between men and women in the access of education and the decision making, in the management of resources and the exercise of citizenship. Likewise, it means to adopt some measures for eradicating discrimination and violence against girls and women. All of this that the ministry has adopted has in this framework and this diagnosis that we have created, we have identified in the educational system, which is also in the implementation plan of our policies. This equality approach, it is an intention process that means a revision, continuous revision of what is taught, why and how. So there we need to work because there's plenty of hidden curriculum which is still permitting between the educational system. In this sense, if the educational centers, the teachers, they apply norms and discrimination treatment for against the students or any other person, maybe we will have students. We're talking about students because they are our main goal, boys and girls and adolescents within the system, the educational system. So it is necessary to develop some skills, competencies for equality of opportunities and prevention of violence, gender violence, in order to, stop them. We had this big question after diagnosis, after and before the having the implementation plan and the policy. How can we integrate this equality approach and equality opportunities, educational opportunities in the teacher training? Fernanda well said that this teacher training, it is something fundamental, not only in basic elements and important ones, but also in all of the different processes which are cross-sectional. And one of them is the gender approach. We said before, how would how we would do this. So the educational ministry and the gender office and different instances, offices, it is important to highlight that we need to work with different offices of the Ministry of Education because it is not only the gender unit that needs to assume the responsibility of training, but there are some other institutions. In our case, it is the training teachers for accompanying that. We created, and it is available for you if you want to know it, a whole process, training process, specialized teaching for equality of opportunities. There are 6 modules for the training. So these modules also are accompanied by some guidelines for students and families. We can also share them. We have also some actions, specific actions for the application and some aid for some people who are suffering from violence. In El Salvador, we have been working hard on this. We also have some people from Honduras that are also working on this. In Central America, we have the same realities. So there's a high index of violence, sexual index in girls and adolescents, and therefore we need to work on that. So what do we want with this? What have we achieved in the application of this after a training process? Before going into this topic, I'd like to tell you that there's a change, real change, an important change when a teacher go through this process. But the first thing that we have achieved when they apply their knowledge is that they include this equality and gender in the planning of their lessons. As an educational ministry of El Salvador, not only we need the teachers are sensitive, but also for them to plan their lessons according to this. We also believe that this cross-analyzation of gender doesn't really, it doesn't need, it shouldn't be outside this educational content. It has to be inside and within its plan. The training process that we promoted at the Educational Ministry of El Salvador has we it has a big purpose. So the teachers should research and create diagnosis of violence preventions in their schools. Educational centers are diverse. There are some of them in urban and rural areas, but they're marginal, rural, urban marginal. So therefore, each school has a different reality. In our processes, training processes, and we also have something which is called this didactical planning. We also have a formative training element, which is called creation of equality plans, which is the creation where we propose how to create a diagnosis, which are the checking lists that they need to include in the diagnosis that we're interested for the teachers trained, they research and they see from their own realities what they have to do. After this diagnosis, they research, and each of the persons sees their own realities. We have what we want, the main goal with this training is they including actions for equality and opportunities in the strategic planning in each of the schools. So we're interested. Besides that, we also need, we want to, we have found some allies in the educational system, and we want to apply these routes which are proposed in the protocols. As educational ministry, we have two protocols which are also available for this community. We have this protocol for acting for the addressing of violence, social violence, sexual violence in educational communities. We have had some cases where teachers, men and women, go through a training process which is they are sensitized. They assume their roles of co-responsibility in the protection of girls and adolescents, boys, especially when they don't know how to act. Sometimes there is sexual violence from school, from home to school, and they don't know what to do. And there are some signs which are emotional, behavioral, and the teachers sometimes may identify. So therefore, we can accompany these processes. The protocol of actuation gives that accompaniment for going into different instances. The Ministry of Education educates, it prevents, it detects, and we also need to assure that the continuity, the educational continuity of the students who are going through rights vulneration or violation of gender, I mean, they should continue studying. Also, in the application of these routes that we're going to apply all of the training processes, we have a protocol of educational continuity for adolescents who are pregnant or who are a mother already. We have a high index of pregnancy, adolescent pregnancy within the country. And many of them know or leave the system, the educational system. Besides they are vulnerable because they are mothers and younger, under 18, they're outside the system. And remember that they're not only violating their right for education, but also their prosperity for the future or entering into or getting a job in the future. So this training process, there we need proper planning of the school center. We also need them to have a diagnosis. We also need, and we invite them to do a proper planning in the school for them to have concrete actions and also for them to apply if they identify sexual violence or adolescent pregnancy. There are some protocols which will, and there are training processes which we can also share. This specialized training, I'm sorry, but you're out of time. So please do your closing remarks. So we're going to share all of this information. There are some training processes. This is for teachers. And those are my final words. Thank you very much. I just like to say by saying that this training is planned with 80 hours, with synchronic sessions and practical ones. So they can build this within the educational system. So we can share the presentation, which is available for you, but we're also willing to, this is a practice community. And as a community, we can also share with you all and we can share our experience. We're also available for your questions. Thank you. Thank you, Jenny. Thank you for your presentation. so complete in terms of the policies there in El Salvador, and especially what you told us about these concrete tools you're working with. Thank you for the invitation to share this material. We're going to share this material for the whole community. So thank you for that. We will give the floor to Michelle Brathwaite. Michelle, she's a specialist in educational projects in Grenada and is the focal point in Grenada. She is a certified teacher and she has a post degree in planning for initial education. Michelle will present actions of the Ministry of Education, youth and sports towards gender equality in Grenada. Michelle, are you there?
Great. Good morning, everyone. And yes, just give me a few minutes so that I can share my screen with you. Okay. Okay, there we go. I am grateful for the opportunity to share on this call this morning. I am briefly going to speak on the actions of the Ministry of Education, Youth, Sports, and Culture, which targets gender equality in Grenada. Now, the government of Grenada is committed to a nation that is just, a nation that is free, independent, and self-reliant, where everyone has an equal opportunity to realize their potential. The intent of the government of Grenada is to build a nation that is stable, is peaceful, is friendly, is safe, secure, capable of sustaining a high quality of life for all of its people. Grenada's focus, that of the local, in the local context, in relation to gender equality, because of the high prevalence of family violence, the focus here in Grenada is on family violence, gender-based violence against women and girls, with emphasis on intimate partner violence, physical, sexual, economic, and emotional abuse of a current and former intimate partner, sometimes generally referred to as domestic violence, and non-partner sexual abuse as well, especially with child sexual abuse, which often occur in situations of family connections or akin to family. So we do have a prevalence of that in Grenada. Therefore, the actions of the Ministry of Education in collaboration with the Ministry of Social Development, Housing, and Gender Affairs. One being the Spotlight Initiative. Another action of the Ministry of Education is that of the draft curriculum policy, which focuses on methodology, pedagogy, the way you would deal with diverse learners. We also have a project which is in collaboration with the Ministry of Social Development as well, the Engender project, which focuses on women and men with disabilities as well, that of the vulnerable groups. And this particular project supports the National Gender Equality Project and Action Plan 2014 to 2024. The Ministry of Education is also involved in child-friendly schools. And with that, we have training for teachers and principals on positive behavior management, and also looking at different types of learners that are within the classroom and accommodating for them. Within the Spotlight initiative, a highlight is that of the Notes Master platform, which is designed for teachers and students. I will speak a little more on that. And also we would have had training for the delivery of CSE programs for teachers within the primary to the tertiary education level, which would also entail the T.A. Marisho Community College, which is our only college on island, which provides teacher education for all of our teachers. Here you can see evidence of the training happening here through the Spotlight initiative. Our focal point here at the Ministry of Education in terms of gender equality and dealing with gender issues will be our Health and Family Life Education Curriculum Officer, Ms. Jacinta Bartholomew, who is actually on the call today with us. So here again, we see a collaboration with the Social Development Ministry as well. So the focus here at that training would have, as master trainers, would have included the T.A. Marisho Community College Teacher Ed Division, as well as primary and secondary teachers. What is the focus of the Spotlight initiative? And it is in retooling teachers to interpret comprehensive sexuality education and gender-based violence in relation to the existing HFLE curriculum. The deliverables equip stakeholders with a repository of high-quality notes, master digital public goods to use as presented, or to repurpose by infusing their own creative styles. So these digital public goods are tailored to all learners, giving teachers that sort of flexibility of using the innovative digital library when preparing their lessons. So our teachers were exposed to Notes Master, which is what is being used to drive CSE. Now, these innovative master digital public goods for Grenada and CARICOM, because we are tri-island state, Grenada, CARICOM, and Petite Martinique, will actually provide a framework that will drive the quality imperative of the Spotlight initiative that is being undertaken by UNICEF, UNFPA, OECS Liaison Officer in Barbados, and the Ministry of Education in Grenada. This program brings with it the enabling technology. So the drive is through technology, knowledge infrastructure requirements to support the retooling and upskilling of our teachers across the territories. So what does the Notes Master include? Things like this. The content will include quizzes, videos, and other interactive material. There are toolkits in the focus of health and family life education. And there is one specifically for gender-based violence. E-resources are there for both our teachers and our students. Now, also within the focus of learning methodologies and so for our educators, which will drive and which is very inclusive, are things such as scaffolding, which our teachers are exposed to, differentiated instruction, teaching tolerance. They are exposed to the holistic approach, universal design for learning. They are exposed to the provision of assistive technology. They are exposed to cooperative teaching, team teaching, total student involvement have also been used, as well as other aids, because we are here working with diverse learners. And diverse learners were taking students who we see not just children with disability, but LGBTQ, whatever it is, but for all of students to be within that of the inclusive classroom. So all of these methods are methods that is inclusive and would accommodate for all students that are within the classroom. So discussions were held with educators. And these are some of the things that came out. Introduction of non-traditional families. It would be something that would now have to be focused on. The gender norms, as they know it before, they would there's a need for change in that area. As how it is seen, discrimination against specific diverse learners, example LGBTQ, we have that as well as an issue as well that the teachers discussed and brought to the table as areas that would need working on or should be focused on here in Grenada. Implementing strategies, findings should be given based on evidence and not only beliefs, and the evidence should also include, it should be data-based, it should be local data as well. There's also that debate here in Grenada, we must say, in terms of where should we begin with CSE? Should it be introduced from 5 years, 5 to 8 year group or older? And our policy, our curriculum policy will therefore speak to this. I would quickly speak on some of the spotlight initiatives that really focuses there and would involve education. That's of outcome number 3, prevention and social norms. Also, outcome number 4, the delivery of high quality essential services. We are also in collaboration with the Ministry of Social Development. So here we would see that it will be focusing on things such as reproductive health, which our students need to know a lot about. We realize that our students do not understand what happens at pregnancy, what are some of the, and this came out too of the discussion with the teachers as well. So we need to look at some of the other issues that are faced with women and girls that's affected in terms of family violence. So all of that, we are in collaboration. It is not one sector, but the way that we are looking at this, or we are tackling it, is involving other sectors within our country. So the Spotlight Initiative itself is actually achieving Grenada's gender equality policy and action plan, which we do have. So here, the program will soon be implemented. The CSE program will be implemented within the schools. But the driving force, as we said, behind this would be that of the HFLE curriculum, the policy as well, the gender policy, as well as the curriculum policy, which presently is in draft stage. For impact and sustainability, recommendations from our health and family life education teachers, who are the driving force behind all of this, is to establish a national advisory council and task force committee to inform the development of these relevant policies. And they are suggesting that we review and improve the national policies as well. Also, sensitization and advocacy efforts, we are going to have to do a lot of that here in Grenada. Provide leadership and management itself for the program. Include the HFLE curriculum training for teachers. Have more sessions where people can openly talk about CSE. So we're still at that stage where there needs to be more conversation on CSE. Have content area to match the guide. Teachers should be open-minded when teaching the content. So teachers should collaborate also within their school with their counselors in the delivery of the concept. So what next would be the action for Grenada? Curriculum policy to guide the mandatory teaching and learning process. In order for us to have the delivery, there must be, or the implementation, there must be the mandatory teaching and learning, and the policy would guide this. And our curriculum, our HFLE curriculum, should include gender-based violence, cyberbullying, and so on, which has also been included now in the HFLE curriculum. So there we speak on comprehensive sexuality education, also to be included within the course being offered at the T.A. Marichaud Community College. So therefore you would have what you call a domino effect, because our teachers are then all being trained at the T.A. Marichaud Community College Teacher Education Department. So just as in the classroom, we are advocating and saying, just as you may have Deaf Awareness Day, you may have World Down Syndrome Day, we should also recognize Pride Day as well. And what would be implemented as well and rolled out pretty soon will be the Notes Master, which will become accessible to all teachers and all students in Grenada. So this is the next step for Grenada gender equality. I want to thank my contributors, Ministry of Social Services, Community Development, Housing, and Gender Affairs, which is actually a ministry within Grenada, a sector within Grenada, that of Ms. Jacinta Alexis, and Ministry of Education, Youth, Sports, and Culture, Ms. Jacinta Bartholomew, our curriculum officer responsible for HFLE, for assisting with this presentation. Thank you, and thank you everyone for listening.
Thank you very much, Michelle, for your intervention. Bueno, vamos a abrir ahora un
So
espacio.
now we will have a Q&A session, some space for questions.
Fernanda, perdón que te interrumpa, Alana.
Fernanda, we also have Alana.
Presente.
Alana
Entonces me imagino
is
que también
present, so I
quiere
imagine she also wants to
participar.
participate in the conversation.
Yo la miré en sala. Buenos días a todas y a todos.
Good morning, everyone. She was in the room. It is a privilege for me to be here from the curriculum department from Honduras. Congratulations, Michelle. Thank you for this great experience that you have presented. We're really interested on it because we are in the process of updating and revision and updating of the curriculum in the country. We've been doing it. I mean, it's been 20 years since we didn't update it. So for us, it is timely. I mean, this experience is so valuable. So we can also take from your experience and your data. I mean, we want to take your experience in teacher training because that is, it is the quality triangle in any educational process. So therefore, contents, teachers, and fathers and mothers of families need to be there. So we will ask you, Michelle, some cooperation so you can support us. And Alana, you're most welcome to the room. Good morning, everyone. Thank you. Thank you, Maritza. Thank you for the opportunity. I haven't met Maciel and Dr. Raul. We were having this interesting conversation. It is a great opportunity for us as gender unit of the Secretariat of Education to share with you all, to share some of the achievements that, thank you to Omar Sanchez de Celaya, our president, our first president of Latin America in this period. I mean, for us, we're so happy to say that starting this new administration under the leadership of Dr. Edith Maricela Figueroa, we got the socialization of the strategic route of gender, which we're going to present today. I'd like to share my screen, please.
Creo que ya tengo habilitado. Muchas gracias.
Alana, en honor al tiempo, entonces tenemos.
So, Alana, we need to be really brief. We just have 10 minutes. So I want to mention that everything that we have done and developed, it is framed in the Development Sustainable Goal number 5, which talks about achieving equality between different genders and empower girls and women. There were 3 processes done before in order to have within the Educational Secretary this strategic route for gender from the year 2018. They met the gender unit within the educational ministry in order to promote the gender approach in many different processes in these 4 fields of the educational secretary. That is to work in the implementation of assessment of policies, plans, and projects, which are pedagogical, administrative, communitary, and participative. We know that, as it was also mentioned by our colleague in Grenada, in the curriculum, we have explicitly have the contents. Thanks to the refundational model that is being developed, as Maritza Barahona just mentioned, We have been doing for the first time the revision of this national curriculum, and we have seen that it's necessary to include explicitly contents which have to do with the cross-sectional access of education for gender equality and education for human rights. As a whole, there are 12. It is cross-sectional access which will be developed. We have been having different technical tables at a national level which are validated with teachers, and that is so relevant because the information has to come from the main actors who are in the classrooms developing science and teaching. So the strategic route for gender sets the North with 76 indicators, which said which are the punctual activities with verification activities will which the different lines would do. We're talking about 76 indicators, which the strategic route of gender has, and they want to, from a diagnosis, from the research action, they can create through the educational networks the different processes for strategic plans of network. What does it mean? In order to improve the access, permanence, and living, finishing their courses, which are the main three strategic agents of the ministry, there must be diagnosis at a local level through the educational networks led by Jose Santos Valeriano. They have been reorganizing 2,400 networks at a national level, which at the same time have some another educational centers which are associated to them. Why is that important? The strategic route on its own as a document, it is not alive. Teachers give life to it, parents as well. Within the activities, we have some programmatic campaigns for communication and programs which develop some competencies and skills for teachers for them to address this gender topic because it happened. And we saw as a result, after the ranking measurement of capabilities, that teachers, men and women, do not have the pedagogical tools to do the inclusion of gender in the classroom. It is hard. So a teacher includes, it is hard for them to include on a daily basis this gender approach if they don't know or don't have the methodology, if they are not empowered. We cannot, we also need to know that adding to what gender violence in the educational field, it is also necessary to articulate this with some other institutions. We know that as an educational secretary at a local level, we have some other institutions who are leveraging this gender topic. One of them are municipal offices of for the women who accompany us in the follow-up and monitoring processes. Within the unit of accompaniment and supervision for education for teachers, instruments have different elements which assess how teachers, men and women, are including in the pedagogical practice this transversalization of gender approach. Not only at the time of choosing one text, we're seeing images and the content. We're also, teachers do not include the gender topic because let's remember that the social agents such as schools, mass media, and the church have an important role, and that also needs to be accompanied. Why do we mention the supervision unit and accompaniment for teachers? Because they are the ones in charge of verifying through the platform or the ODK if children, both boys and girls, are attending classes and if they are truly in protected spaces for learning. In Honduras, we do the launch of a study of the protective factors for education, which help school retention and school harassment. It is one of the critical elements which we found. And it determines the permanence or sometimes they eject students from the classroom. What do we mean by that? In the case of the strategic route of gender, they have also included the articulation with the Undersecretary of Community Participation, which at the same time creates school committees for convivence. They have in their structure one of the modules. It is how to make this approach cross-sectional. We're going to articulate this with different line units on the educational secretary at a central level and decentralized level, we work with different processes. Within the current curriculum, we cannot observe explicitly the content of gender approach, but we can say that it is cross-sectionally included. The curriculum, national curriculum for primary education, which is under revision, has a cross-sectional access of participatory democracy. So there we found a space that must promote everything related to eliminating this patriarchal culture that sometimes jeopardizes the capability and potentiality of students. I'd like to take the chance to, in just 1 minute, to share with you the figures that we have been observing at a national level. And there we can see that within gender violence, which is lived at a national level, the ones who are mostly affected are girls. From January up until June this year, the public, there were 2,232 related to sexual violence, and out of them, 1,615, those were against women. So women are the ones who are being victimized, because the topic is that currently we do not have some mechanisms in order to serve both women and girls who are suffering this violence. Recently, the educational secretary included this violence based in gender, so that allowed us to see which are the actuation routes that we as teachers are going to have for this violence not to be defenseless, especially for girls and boys. So currently, we are in a process of strengthening. We thank the presence of Maritza Barahona, which for a long time has been supporting this gender topic. And now that she's the director of the General Direction of Curriculum and Assessment, and in my case, as a coordinator for the gender unit, well, we have been working together in all of these processes, formative and revision processes for the curriculum for primary school. So there, participating in this learning community, it is something that gives us huge expectations, because information, education policies based on evidence are so important, especially for the increase of permanent access and for boys and girls to live their finishing their educational levels. Finally, we're developing at a pilot stage this human rights program for women, which is aimed for teachers in preschool and primary school. So here we're meeting the policy for gender equality, which is implemented in Central America and the Caribbean. Thank you very much for the time and for listening. I just want to add that when she was talking, I mean, for us, the hardest part has been the articulation with the social ministry. But Dr. Maricela Figueroa, as she said, now she's the minister of the Solidarity Network, which articulates these four main ministries, health and education, which are going to lead and be in charge of this route. So we're going to work from the social sector, and that it is a great opportunity. So for us, I mean, we're working at a national level. I mean, this strategy of socialization of the strategic route of gender, it is for us as a delivery from the secretary. And here we see how we're going to get into an agreement with the whole national sector, especially with advisors such as you. We're so privileged to have you all. So we're really thankful for this space and this opportunity. Thank you, Maritza. I want to thank the three speakers, Jenny, Michelle, and Alana. Really interesting topics. What we want it is creating this feedback, this interactivity between different countries in the region, basically to get to know and for learning. So I will give the floor for you
asistentes y a las
to ask
asistentes,
questions or some
si
comments.
quieren comentar alguna observación,
Maybe
alguna pregunta.
you want to comment, or maybe you have a question.
Pues yo quiero hacer una pregunta
I have a question
Si, por favor,
for the group.
algunas de las que estamos en la sala tienen
Does
algún
any of
tipo
you
de
have any
desarrollo
experience
de
of developing
enfoque de género del nivel prebásico desde la primera infancia, desde los 3 años?
from first infancy, 3 years on? I mean, for us, it would be so useful because we are, or we haven't been able to do much. We have only advanced in some process after or from 5 years, but we haven't done anything from 3 to 4, and 4 to 5, and first infancy from 0 to 3, because we haven't been able to work this at the country. So from 0 to 3, we're building that curriculum, everything that has to, or it's related to the first infancy,
Gracias, Maritza.
first
No sé si
childhood.
Michelle o Yeny, o por
Michelle
supuesto
or
algún otro
Jenny
participante,
or
alguna
any
otra
other
participante
participants
quiera
want to comment on
compartir
this
alguna
or share their
experiencia sobre primera
experience
infancia.
about first childhood, first infancy?
O alguna otra pregunta que tengan.
Or
Nos
any
quedan
other
realmente
question
2
that we
minutos.
have 2 more
Sería
minutes.
ideal si alguien pudiera compartir alguna
So if
reflexión o
someone
observación.
may share an observation or thought.
Maciel,
Raúl.
Maciel,
quisiera muy
I
brevemente,
briefly, I
unos
just
30
want
segundos
to
para decir que, por supuesto,
say
estas
that, of course,
conversaciones,
these
deben
conversations
ser
must be,
profundizadas. Es
we must
muy,
go deeper into this
muy,
conversation.
Enriquecedor
These
escuchar cada
conversations
una
are
de
so
las
enriching.
experiencias hoy día
All
de El
of the different
Salvador,
experiences,
de
I mean, from El
Grenada, de
Salvador, from
Honduras
Grenada, from
también.
Honduras, I
Y,
mean,
por
all of
cierto, el
them
resto de los países de la
reach
región.
experiences, and
Entonces,
the rest of the
la
countries of the
siguiente
region. So
sesión
please,
es
in
una
our
sesión
next
más
session,
larga, donde
it is a
vamos a
longer
invitar
session
algunos
where we also want to
especialistas
invite some
externos a la
specialists
comunidad,
from
pero
outside the
también
community.
por la
But
posibilidad de
we will
profundizar
have
en
the
la
possibility
conversación.
to go deeper into
Como
the
ustedes saben,
topic.
hoy día era una
As you
sesión
well
más
know,
corta
today
y es
this is a
por eso
brief session,
quería
so
hacer
that's
ese
why I
punto
just wanted to
de que los
mention
espacios para
that. I
profundizar,
mean, the
para
spaces
seguir, por
to go deeper
supuesto,
into this are going to be
disponibles.
here.
Muchas gracias a todas por
Thank you
su
very much.
participación.
Thank you for your participation. We have 1 more minute. So please turn on your camera to have a picture of the final session. As well, Raul said, we will go deeper into these topics in future sessions. Thank you very much for the ones who answered and completed the form. We have prepared and we have taken notes of some policies that you have shared in the form. We're going to that in our next session. But honoring time, we need to finish. So please turn on your camera so Carolina can have a picture. And Maciel, can you please share the link of the assessment in the chat box so people can also have it, so they can also answer this once we finish this meeting. Thank you. I will copy the link then. And please, I mean, we want to go deeper into this topic and want to identify more topics. So we have a form that we will share, and please complete it. It is written in 3 languages, so if you could please answer it, is for the assessment of the session. In this form, we're asking for your names, so be honest. We really need it for our records, right? So please answer freely and give us some directions in order to go deeper into this topic. And you're invited for our next session. It's going to be in January. We will let you know. We're going to provide material for the community, and we will keep you in touch. If someone needs a contact of someone, please get in touch with that person through us. We can do those connections. Thank you very much. Thank you, Jenny. Jenny, you're always supporting us. She's our co-organizer. Thank you. Would you like to say goodbye? Thank you very much. Everyone, we're all building this community of practices, so we invite you to keep on working. Keep up the good work in order to share more experiences. Thank you very much. See you next time.